Cavecast, the uncensored show for nerds of all kinds.
I gotta say that it is going to go without saying that this is going to be a spoiler review.
Oh, yeah.
There's no way that we can get into what we liked about this movie, the surprising emotional impacts that this movie had, and just the fun time we had without talking about very specific things that we do not want to spoil for you if you've not seen the movie, because in my opinion,
you kind of already, everybody knows like the story.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? Like even quote spoilers are not really going to be spoilers, because if you go to see this movie or have seen this movie, you already know the entire story. There was very little, I feel like, that was like quote changed. Mm-hmm. There were certain things kind of like with The Last of Us from the video game to the, to the TV. So knowing that, like, I would have never known if you had been like, oh, well, they were actually in Pittsburgh for this and blah, blah, blah. Same thing with The Machine. There was very little that I feel like was actually changed, but it was for storyline or Hollywood or maybe some more funnier things. But yeah. And the fact that it wasn't the story fully. It was kind of like, because of this story, this is now another story.
It's a big what if.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the thing, is that if you know about the story of The Machine, it's going to be almost like a love letter to the fans in a way. Is that's not where the surprises come from. It is really in the story that happens after the fact, and him either reliving the night or he's talking about certain things. Like I loved the mentality of he addressed it in the movie where he's like, dude, this is like top 5, like one of the times I've been the most drunk. Like I don't remember, I can't remember what happened because I was drinking vodka with Russians. Like it is what it is. So we both loved this movie. This was so much fun.
I'll own it.
Yeah, but I want to own it on Blu-ray. And we've been watching some reviews, and it's gotten like maybe a mixed reception from some people. Like maybe like some people that like weren't a fan of Bert, or like
that one D-man was like, he's the weak. I'm like, the fuck he is.
Yeah, Bert surprised me.
He really did.
It was very early on in the movie, and when
he was upset about what the family situation, and that was the point when I went, okay, I know that it's going to be a funny movie all the way through, but I was like, whoa, he really pulled out the big guns here, because that was real. Mm-hmm. That wasn't, you could tell he was trying to fake it offset and, come back in and do this crazy. No, he was lip going, tears coming down, shaking in his voice. Like that was real. I'm like, man, he honed into something and it worked.
Yeah.
Everybody thinks Luke Skywalker and everybody else, Mark Hamill's in this. He's going to be the star. Yeah, he did all right.
He was fantastic, but
I really think Bert did a really good job. First of all, for not being an actor, he's a stand-up comedian. That's a big difference.
Yeah.
You're just being a dumbass on stage. This is production, have to follow rules, make sure that it looks good, sounds good. And he nailed it. Everybody in this movie was actually really good. We found out that it was like a $20 million budget. Mm-hmm. And that's why like some of the fight scenes and like all that stuff were just really on point. But you can have all that stuff and all that money and still have garbage actors. I'm sorry.
100%.
And it just doesn't work right.
No, it's a budget.
Look at the Disaster Artist.
Well, a budget does not determine whether or not a movie is good.
Correct.
Because guys, I'm not going to go on a huge tangent about this, but our good friend Mike, that we've met through YouTube and different things, is that we Skyped with him the one night and a bunch of friends because he's from the UK. So, we can't, sit with him in a living room, but we can watch a movie. And Neil Breen, if you guys do not know who this guy is, I don't want to make fun of him. I'm not trying to be degrading, but guys, it is unbelievable that these movies were made. And apparently he's independently wealthy and put these things together. I'm sorry. It's not even just the Neil Breen thing. There's $100 million movies that are being made that it's just garbage.
Right.
And to me, it's one of those that I think that there's this, because we've talked about CGI and stuff, but it's like these big sets and these productions. And it's like, okay, Prometheus looked good. The trailer was amazing. Ridley Scott did something amazing with the visual aspects of that movie, but my God, the script was terrible.
I didn't really get into it. And that's where you can fall flat with some of these movies, especially actors that are not actors doing movies for the first time or, trying to be a part of a series or something like that. They can fall flat. Bert Kreischer did a very good job. And the fact that already knowing the story, having this other kind of story go with it, it was fun. It was a cool trip to go through.
Yes.
There was a lot of action. There was some blood. There was some vomit.
Oh my God. We're going to get into all of it, dude. It's yeah.
But I think that's what made it fun, was because I was waiting for it to like glorify and idolize drinking and partying, which it actually didn't.
Right.
Because there for a while, he's like, guys, this is not me anymore. Like, I don't do this shit anymore. Like,
Right.
yeah, I hang out and chug beers with some friends but I don't party like this. And like you said, like, how am I supposed to remember? This was 25, 30 years ago, whatever it was. And I was drunk the whole time. Like, I don't remember.
Right.
There was that perfect balance, I felt like, where it was, yes, there was the point of having the party scenes and all of this going on.
Yeah.
But there was a lot more to it than that.
Yeah.
It wasn't like Van Wilder, which apparently that was like based off of his life as well before this movie.
Yeah.
And I don't know how true that is, but it wasn't like that. It kind of had this like John Wick meets like, like, I don't know, Beverly Hills Ninja, or something, but it was done very well. And like I said, I'll own it. It was that good. And Bert Kreischer was not the weak point.
No, it's honestly, I think that what impressed me about this movie was that I kind of went into it with the mentality of, I know what I'm getting. Mm-hmm. I am getting a comedy that is about something that is legendary, that I'm sure is probably going to be a lot of fan service. There's going to be a lot of homages. There's going to be, all these different things. And to be fair, I did go into this movie with very low expectations.
Really?
Because, and it's only because of my view on comedies, is that it's so rare that comedies are made so well. And it's the idea, because I think it's how Rob Zombie said it when he said that if you mute The Hangover, it is a beautiful looking movie. It is a cinematic, amazing movie. It's just the idea that when you turn on the sound, it's like, oh, and it's funny too. Okay, cool. So
sure. When
comedies do that, I love that. Like The Night Before, it's a very solid comedy movie. It's a Christmas movie, but it's so damn good.
It's visually stunning.
I went into this movie expecting it to be kind of like I don't know. I don't want to say it was going to be like the Weird Al movie, but that's the only thing that I can.
I get what you mean.
To.
Yeah.
Weird Al made this thing, and it was like, okay, it's a complete parody of my life. None of it is real, even though like a lot of it is, but a lot of it isn't.
Yeah, it was real, but in different aspects of how it was real. Like the fame or like whatever was, a lot of the story was the same, but certain things were flipped around. This movie did that kind of.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting to me that, especially Mark Hamill, I did not expect him to be in the movie as much as he was.
Same.
And because the way that he's introduced, I mean, because this movie is very cookie cutter with a lot of things, but I'm sorry, the pieces that they cut out that were very familiar, they were unique in their own way.
They were.
And it's because I expected Mark Hamill to, like, maybe they had him like in my mind and like when I was getting ready to watch it, I'm like, he probably was on set for a couple of days. They shot the beginning. They maybe shot the middle when he gets a phone call, like, oh my God, my son's in trouble. And then at the end, it's no, son, I've always believed in you. And it's like this cheesy trope. And they completely went, nah, we're going in a whole nother direction here. His dad is with him throughout the entire movie.
Pretty much. Yeah.
And it is. Oh my God, Mark did such a great job of being an asshole, of being that father that you're not good enough, and then like, how they ultimately come together in the end. Mm-hmm. It did feel very natural. It didn't feel like this comedy trope, even though the movie itself is a very blatant self-aware comedy. And that's what's so interesting about it.
And he never said, I'm your father. Pissed me off.
Oh, I didn't even think about that.
I was waiting for something like that to happen where I'm like, okay, they're going to flip this, but they didn't, probably because of the fact of this is Bert's movie. Yeah. I wonder if that was part of it where it's like, nah, man, we don't need that. They all know, but that still would have been funny. But no, you're absolutely right. Like the way that it was approached, I had higher expectations than you apparently, but I also had this realization that, like you said, this is a comedy movie. This is, kind of like satire almost. It's going to be like a Ace Ventura. It's going to be like a Dumb and Dumber. It was, but it was really good. I don't mean that those weren't good movies, but this was a very different approach to that, like, stupid comedy. Yeah. That slapstick comedy that, I love, but even at that, there's a point to where it gets old or it's just not funny. You know, there was a lot. That's why like a lot of people didn't like, you know, like even like The Office, because it's just like dry humor. Like you have to have a certain level of like acceptance for dumb things.
Yeah.
You know, so, but yeah, that it was very interesting that I was kind of thinking the same thing, but I was hoping that it was going to be more than that. And it was. And it's, man, like there's actually a lot that happened in this movie, but I think the best way to kind of approach it is to talk about really what the whole point of this movie is a watch. It's a watch and I love it. It's such a simple plot device, and it doesn't fall into the trap of, because like when it comes to an item in a movie or whenever in like, you know, a story, that it kind of falls into the Rise of Skywalker thing where it's like get shiny thing to get into place, and now be like, and it's just it doesn't hold any weight. And really this movie, the watch is so damn important. It is. And what I thought at first was, I was like, okay, like, is this going to be a situation of that we get to the end, maybe there never was a watch and there's something, you know, that they wanted to bring him here to either kill him or whatever. It was so crazy how good it was that they were trying to retrace their steps, or retrace his steps, to find out, okay, what exactly happened that night. All the Igors. Yeah. This movie, especially Sponge, made me mad. I fucking loved him. The big bodybuilder dude. Like, although the guy that played him, he was fantastic. There really was no weak points in this film. No, there wasn't. Everybody, even with like side actors or extras or like what, you know, even people that were only in it for a few minutes or whatever it was, everybody brought it. Yeah. Everybody had like a list kind of stature about them when it came to them being on scene, or if they had like a, you know, like a line or something. Yeah. It was really awesome.
Yeah. It's especially too, is that with this entire train sequence, when, you know, we're actually physically on the train. And I love this too, before we actually get into the whole train ride, is that you start seeing Bert piecing everything together.
The transitions between him.
Oh my God.
Dude, they were phenomenal.
Oh my God. It was
leading into him being younger, coming back to his, like, you know, today's self. Like, it was pretty flawless, man. Like you always say, where it's like, if the visual artist does their job, everything gets out of the way. You don't notice it.
Correct.
And that's what happened. I know this was a movie, but like, I was like, oh shit. Oh, we're going, you know, flashback. And it didn't look corny.
Right.
It looked the way it should. And that was, I think, one of the bigger highlights for me visually was, the colors and things on the trains, but it was the flashing back and forth and the fading in and out. It wasn't abrupt or like took away from the video or the visuals.
Yeah. Cause so many times, flashbacks are the weakest points of films.
Right.
What I loved about this is that it completely flipped it on its head, and it was, no, the flashbacks help us discover the story.
Correct.
This isn't just to show you that him and his dad were bad together, you know, like, or that they didn't have a good relationship,
or him shotgunning a beer in the train station just because it was something funny to show. There was real purpose for the flashbacks.
Yeah, it is so impressive. Just it almost kind of had this Saw 4 kind of look to it. Is that I say that with a proper way of doing it, just because Saw 4, like it got so much to the point that it was confusing whenever scenes would change. Like even the way that they shot it, which a lot of effort was done to make it happen, it just became too much. And it was a headache to watch. Yeah. And it's what was great about this was that this movie took its time, and it allowed the story to be, it allowed the pacing to, I wouldn't say be all over the place, but there's a lot of dips and there's a lot of hills with the different, you know, actions and the things that happen. And it's weird because I never thought that I would ever approach a Bert Kreischer film or a film about him and be able to talk about just how well made this movie is. It is not only just a joy to shut your brain off and just have a great time. It is a damn good movie. Like just in general, it is just a damn good movie.
It's one of those, like you said, it's probably, once I do own it, it will be one of those that gets put on as kind of like, I don't mean because it's a throwaway movie. It's like The Office or something for me, where it gets put on because it's background and I get to come in at certain points while I'm cooking or doing whatever it is. And, oh God, this part, you know, and then watch it whenever I want. That to me is the sign of a well-made movie, for my personal opinion.
Sure.
When I want to have something like that, where it's like, I know I'm going to fall asleep in 30 minutes, but I'm going to put it on before bed.
Yeah.
I'll at least get to see him do this scene or whatever. Maybe I start it, at the, 35 minutes in because I'll get to this point. That's what I do.
Mm-hmm.
Once I've got the base down and I've seen it a couple of times in a row or kind of know the movie or the show, now it can become just noise because I like that. That's the thing I like.
Yeah.
And I never thought I'd say this, but Bert Kreischer did that. His stand-up is one thing, but a movie from him, never thought I'd say that.
No, not at all. And I think that what impressed me the most was the practical effects of the gore in this movie.
Bro.
I think me and you were thinking of the same scene, which was the choke, the neck thing.
Oh yeah! Oh god!
Not only does it
let go,
it's oh my god, it's so warm! It's so warm!
I'm gonna throw up.
What was so awesome about it was, for anybody, if you've made it this far and you haven't seen the movie, one of the Russians gets his neck slit and just is unfazed. He's just like, oh, whatever, it's Russia. He's like,
Bert goes to punch him.
And his fucking fist just goes into his throat. And I think he grabs whatever he can. And he's like, how are you still alive? It is so damn good. And it's just the fact that I looked at that and I'm like, they can't get funnier than this. And then it kept getting funnier with now the window's broken and his hands out, the whole let go thing. It is, oh my God, the practical effects in this movie, it actually not only was funny, but it kind of almost had green room violence. It was very grisly whenever it did happen.
And I don't mean to be gross, but you're right. And one of the things that got me was when he was pulling that piece of wood or whatever it was out of her leg.
Yeah.
Now, not only did it look and sound real with that part, but when he was like, I'm going to throw up, and he threw up in his hand and and he put it in his pocket. And she's like, did you just put that in your pie? He's like, I don't know what. But when he had it was it looked real.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, anybody, I don't want to say anybody, but you can do blood effects and, a piece of wood through, a calf muscle and stuff. I can make it look real on camera. One of the things that I've always noticed, not that I see a lot of vomit on camera, but it's stuff like that is usually the biggest weak point. And I know you couldn't see a lot of it because his hand was covering it, but just the way it was done, I'm like, that looked real.
Yeah.
That looked like he actually threw up in his hand and put it in his pocket.
Well, yeah,
I knew it wasn't real, but that was where I'm like, bro, they are really pulling out no stops here. This is all going in for everything, because even that little detail is where people were going to notice, people like me, because I'm a fucking psycho. But that's where I determine certain movies when it's okay, the stuff. How does the stuff look? And that was part of the stuff. So
yeah, well, I think vomit in movies is always one of the things that, it can either sell the movie or it can take it away. And I'm not trying to trigger anybody if anybody has an issue with it, but it's because me included, I sometimes even movies can be too much for me when that happens. But there's something about the fact of the way that he did that, because I would like to know if it was an in-camera effect or however they did it, because you can go over the top Evil Dead. And it's just, this, endless fountain, even Hostel. It's they're Hostel was disturbing, but I could tell that it was Eli Roth, being gross.
Sure.
So it's even though they're terrified and that's why it's happening, it's just, it didn't have that realism. And
correct.
How interesting is it that a movie like this paid, it was almost kind of like a Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. It had that kind of VFX kind of look to it or whatever. This real liquid is coming out, but there's things that are hiding the way it's being pumped. And it's all about how you do it. And it's just, I don't know who all was involved in this film, but everybody that was a part of being on set and, making the different gore gags and, even the makeup and the fact that Bert's hands for the majority of the rest of the movie are just caked in blood. Until they make it to oh god, what was the guy's name? Ivan? No, it was Igor.
No, it was Igor.
Igor, yeah. When they made it that far, and it's just oh my god, it's there's
because he never stopped to wash his hands.
Yeah, right. Because it's it kind of goes into that Outlast mentality where it's this is gross.
Yeah.
But in the same hand is that, man, it kept the realism. It made sure that this movie never stopped at making you understand that what you are seeing that's happening in front of you is quote unquote real. And that was just, it was wild.
Yep.
It was really, really good. I can't sing its praises enough visually. However, the one thing I do want to talk about is the woman that he met on the train. That was a part of the movie that I was not expecting.
Yeah.
And that actually hit the hardest, I think, out of everything. Like, not that, like, I mean, because we're going to get into like what happened with his daughter and everything, but to get into the serious side of things, man, like, I knew she was going to be important. I didn't know why.
Right.
And the context basically is they're robbing the train and he is belligerent and drunk and he goes into a room and spits vodka on the bed and is like, fuck this bitch, it's Russia. And it was this girl that he was supposed to go on a date with, and they were actually genuinely interested in each other.
Right.
And he had to steal her ring because he had a gun to his head, and it was just like, nah, you steal. And it was just, damn, like, it's like, I did not expect that to happen. And like, he immediately regretted it and knew what happened. You know, maybe he would have regretted that tomorrow morning if he could have remembered it and it was a stranger. But the fact that like, it almost kind of ripped him out of being drunk and being like, oh my God, what did I just do?
Yeah, this is happening.
Yeah. It's just, I didn't expect them to give a shit that much. I didn't think that they were going to have this. I didn't think the script was going to have so much heart. And it did. And
that's the thing, like between the girl that like the kind of love interest, and then, you know, with his family and then his daughter, you know, and everything, like, yeah, I know that was kind of embellished for the story and, you know, for like some, you know, some more like movie plot, but he did it and he put in the effort as far as like making that a real thing and, you know, the emotions and things behind it, because he was upset that his daughter was mad at him. You know, the scenarios of, you know, between him and his wife and, you know, between, you know, the stand up and the drinking that he was doing and all that stuff. Like, it really put it in a like a realism as far as like him being like a real human being and having a life like outside of being the drunk guy that's on stage and everybody wants to do shots with him.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, that's great. Just kind of like, you know, Brent was talking about today, where it's like, you know, he is this person that these kids think he is, that he sleeps in this bed and wakes up and, you know, blah, blah. Like, okay, sure. That's Bert's image, but that's not who he is all the time.
No.
So having that like kind of sprinkled in there was kind of awesome, because it gave like a real like effect for people to where it's like, oh, you know, he is kind of like, you know, worried about what his family thinks, and maybe he is going to go through a divorce or whatever it is. Him and his wife are having a hard time.
Yeah.
But it still hurts him. And then he's got to go put on this face to, you know, for everybody and, you know, on Instagrams and YouTubes and podcasts and whatnot. Now, whether that was real or not, it was still put in the movie and they captured it all. The daughter wasn't in it a whole lot, but it kind of played a very impactful part.
Yeah.
It was because of her not, you know, her not getting hurt and doing what they wanted him to do, or she was going to get hurt. No, she wasn't in it, but there was that storyline that went with it. He was doing everything he could to make sure that his kids and family were safe.
Yeah.
There's something real about that, man. And the movie, like you said, tied it all together to where it wasn't corny. It actually made sense. And there wasn't like really plot holes, if you will, that I could really find offhand.
I'm sure that if you wanted to, I mean, you can scrutinize any movie and pick it apart. Like, I mean, there's, you know, big movies that everybody loves that there are either, you know, flaws, or maybe there's some things that should have been explained, or, you know, whatever. But I agree. I think that this movie, it set off a bunch of bunny trails and all of them came together.
Right.
And I did not expect to fall in love with the characters the way that I did. I mean, it's interesting because especially like I love Russian culture anyway. Just like that to me it's just so funny, like how little of a fuck they give, and that it's like they're the toughest people on the planet, and like this and this. Like it's cool to see that side of the world have a comedic factor to it.
Yeah.
And it's not that Russians aren't funny. It's just that from the stereotypes from what people that don't live there, they assume something.
Yeah.
And it was so cool to see them kind of like poke fun at themselves. Bert poked fun at himself.
Right.
You know, Mark, as his dad, poked fun at himself. Like it's just, my God, like the scene that actually still sticks out to me, speaking of his dad, is when he basically becomes the machine.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he walks like, Dad, what are you doing? Like, it's just, oh my God.
He's like, I'm partying. Like, what do you mean, dude? Like, where do you think you get it from? Like,
what was it? Because he kept saying throughout the entire movie, he's like, son, I swore an oath to not hurt anybody.
Yeah.
It's like, it kept coming up, and a part of me was like, where is this going? Like, is he finally going to be the one to do this? Like, to save everybody. And I loved it where it's like, I don't, but she will. And he tosses it to the main Russian girl. I can't remember her name, but no, just,
she was hot.
She was great.
Yeah.
She was so awesome. And I'm trying to think of, I think that what stuck out to me was that like the moments from the special when he would talk about the story, like the moments of like the fuck this bitch, this is Russia, like when like they did include the moment with his teacher walking into the car, and it's just, and by the way, let's also talk about the fact the guy that played the younger version of Bird. Oh my God, was he great?
I've seen him in other things. He's not like a huge actor, I don't think, but I've seen him in other things like TV shows. But no, he did. He nailed it. Like he did a really good job. He wasn't in a whole lot, but it was the fact of Bert being the older one was kind of the main thing. But the flashbacks with the younger Bert, dude, they were spot on. They were good.
Especially the edible scene when he's out in the woods talking to his younger self. Like, it's like, if that's not the best representation of what somebody goes through in that moment, where it's like, nah, dude, like it's not the, oh, I see colors and all this. It's like, no, you evaluate your life. Right. Think about this. And you're like, God, like, where am I at right now? Why is this happening? What did I do? And it's just, my God, like, and the fact that scene led into how he got to see Igor again. And I don't know if this is the way to think about it, but there's a part of me that wonders, and I think I talked about this when we were watching the movie, is I don't know if that Igor, that particular Igor that he's mentioned, in the story, if he really was, the person, in the flashbacks and stuff. I don't know how much was dramatized or like what was maybe changed, but it really felt like they hammered it home that Igor was okay.
Yeah, I did like that.
And
I did like that.
It does make me wonder as to whether or not that was like Bert's like almost kind of dealing with it, where it's like, nah, dude, in my world, Igor made it.
I was going to say that, or maybe somehow like they kind of got like rekindled and like found out, like, I don't know. But I wondered that too, where if it's one of those, he doesn't really know. And in his story, it all just works out okay.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a good way to put it too, man. But either way, I loved how they did that kind of flip as far as like the whole, the one Igor, but yeah. There's many.
Okay. And the climax of this film, when he goes full machine and just like, just chugs the vodka. And that's when you were talking about the John Wick thing, where this movie takes a turn and it just becomes, I don't care how ridiculous this is. I don't care how implausible these fights are, that he would be able to hold up against the Russian mafia and just take them down. No, dude, he is the machine.
Right.
And just in the fact that every time that they would interact with him, like, we heard about the machine. You are no machine. And like the whole slap scene when like he gets rocked.
Yeah. He wakes up like 12 hours later.
It's so good. It's just, oh my God. No, but it's like the end of it, like the whole like statue falling and like just all that stuff. Like, it is this beautiful set piece that, again, not only like was the stunt work and everything great, but man, like it just worked. Like, it's like you knew exactly what you were getting into, and that this was just a fun ass just time. And I even loved the way that Bert interacted with his wife in the movie.
Yeah,
when he had to leave, and all he can say to her is, "I'm sorry, I love you."
Because he couldn't say anything, and that was if that was the last words he ever got to utter to his wife, that was going to be it.
Yeah,
I agree.
That was. I still can't believe that this movie exists. It's something that made me realize that I think that I want to see Bert do other stuff. Maybe all he can be is himself. Like, let's be clear. Like, there are actors that, like, when you go to see a Jeff Goldblum movie, Jeff Goldblum is amazing. He is a great actor,
but it's Jeff Goldblum,
right? And and I'm okay with it. Like, 'cause I knew what I signed up for. Like, it does make me wonder if we could maybe get
like an Ashton Kutcher and Butterfly Effect.
Yeah, it honestly makes me think of like Chris Farley. Like if he would have had a full on serious movie, like maybe he would have played like, the bouncer at a club or whatever, but he's like, this derogatory, disgusting human being that there's no redeemable nature. But it's like, no, he's an actor. Yeah. He portrayed this properly. It does make me wonder if Burt has the capacity to do that, or maybe even want to pursue it. I mean, he may just want to, do what he's doing now. Maybe this was fun and he may do cameos, but
sure.
Yeah, I would like to see him actually maybe take a crack at it and try to do some serious stuff and, maybe not have all the focus just be on him, just be in the room and be a supporting actor or something. I don't think he needs to be main lead territory all the time because not every movie is the Machine. So
agreed. I think if he can keep his foot in the door and approach the correct scripts, and whether it's, like you said, supporting actor or the main character or whatever, but if he does it right, he could have a little bit of a nice ride here. I mean, and I'm not trying to shit on anybody's favorite actor or anything, but my God, if like The Rock and LeBron James and all these people can be actors that were once something else, Burt Kreischer did a very good job at being a better actor than some of the other actors that are now actors that weren't that first. Wow, that was a lot to get through. But
no, it's true.
But yeah, you know what I mean? Yeah. Where it's like, yes, I agree. I hope he does at least a couple more movies.
Yeah.
But I think more than anything, he's going to need to be that main role or like that supporting main role because it's fucking Burt Kreischer. That's what people came to see. Like he's the stuff, so.
And usually his shirt comes off every single time.
Yeah.
So, but guys, I knew this wasn't going to be much of a long formed movie. We're not, long formed podcast. It's just about a movie. We didn't do questions or anything. We just wanted to geek out about it. And just tell you guys about this amazing thing that we got to see. If you like this movie, comment, let us know what you guys thought of it. If you didn't like it, that's okay too. Tell us why. Like, let's talk in the comments about it.
You're wrong.
So, it's just, this was such an interesting thing that was so nice to be around that I didn't expect it to be. And I think that's why it was such a joy. That I didn't think this was going to work the way that it did, but it did.
It did.
So either way, guys, we appreciate you hanging out with us. Eric, is there anything that you would like to say to them before we officially sign off?
Fuck that bitch. This is Russia. Cheers.
See you guys.